you to both Dr. Odi Maningat and Sarah Gutkowski. And we are going to go into a Q&A session where if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A box. Just go ahead and type in your questions. First off, Brandon asks, is there a specific ratio of vital wheat gluten, a rice 8000, that is critical when wheat flour is not used?
I can start with that question and let Odie go next as well to add more information. It really depends on what baked product you are making. We gave some examples today in bread or tortilla, but of course when you're having other ingredients added and depending on what those other additives are in your formulation, it can also mean that you might have to lean towards maybe more a Rise 8000 versus 5000. So if you have questions in the future on your individual formulation, we will be happy to help you out to hear about, maybe you have lower volume. So I would talk about looking at increasing the Rise 8000. Perhaps another example that happens is, maybe it's a little too tough. The dough is a little too tough because of, these are very functional ingredients. So with a Rise 8000, it has those very elastic properties. So maybe then we will look at increasing the Rise 5000 to compensate that really elasticity that the Rise 8000 brings.
Yeah, if I could add my comment on that, I think if we look at the slides on the two high protein, low carb formula, you can see an approximate ratio of 1 part Arise to 2 parts of Arise 8000, or you can look at Arise 8000 substituted with vital wheat gluten. So that's the approximate ratio, but I think the best test is really what the dough handling feels to the product developer or to the baker, and that's when you do your adjustment on the ratio of the protein ingredients.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go down the chat list to see, there was a question that I wanted you guys to answer earlier on. Are there applications for this in quick breads or cookie recipe? Or is it just yeast-based goods?
Maybe I can say first that we have several more prototype recipes, and they both apply to yeast-leavened and chemically leavened products. So we have real examples, and of course we can share that with snack cracker as chemically leavened product. The flour tortilla that we saw there is chemically leavened. And then, of course, we have bagels also, and even some yeast leavened donut as an example. So, Sarah, I think you've done some high protein cookies before. So there's quite a wide application in baked goods.
So yes, I agree with that too. And to add to that, you can use a rice and fiber seam in any kind of system. However, bread baking is the most challenging, and that's why we focus on that today. As a lot of you would have tried just adding wheat gluten in there, it doesn't work, and that's why we brought on these two experts today to show you, besides vital wheat gluten, what else we could put in your toolbox to make you create a bread that's not dense. We need something that's soft and fluffy. I really think this application is so much easier in quick breads and cookies, and that's why we didn't put too much focus on this little short session. But if you need more information on formulations and guides to how to use this system in quick breads, please go ahead and email MGP today. We will put MGP's email on the chat box, and you can reach out directly to them. Okay, so next question is, let's see. How does the wheat fiber compare to other plant fibers in terms of functionality in baked goods? Good question.
Yeah, maybe I can respond to that. I'm hoping that the definition by the person who asked the question of wheat fiber is fiber sim or resistant wheat starch, because in general wheat fiber is also available out there that's derived from the wheat plant itself, you know. So we actually captured our information on that in our FiberSim booklet. FiberSim was compared to RS2 and RS3 resistant starches from other botanical sources. We compared it against inulin, we compared it against oat fiber. So in essence, the general conclusion we can get from it is FiberSim can actually duplicate the loaf volume of the control bread without any fiber additive, as well as its shelf stability, the retention of the softness of the crumb, I think over a 10-day period. So I will say that we can send a copy of our FiberSim booklet to refer to that data.
I would like to add to that question, Dr. Odie, is when you use FiberSim, do we have to declare it separately on the label as wheat fiber, or is it under wheat flour?
Well, it's declared in the ingredient label on a descending order, and it's labeled as modified wheat starch.
Okay, modified wheat starch. Okay. Next question is, I missed one, Amy. With different arrays, we see different volumes of bread in your presentation, Sarah. All the proofing time the same?
Yes, all the proofing times are the same, so it's the same procedure for every single bread sample. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes, so
great.
all the same. Mm-hmm.
So next question is about cost. What is the cost impact in the product compared to a standard bread? That's a great question.
Lynn, we normally refer that question to our sales team. So we really, even if we know the answer, it's probably not accurate. So we will take that question and
yeah,
say,
I think this is a great question you have with the business development person at MGP. And I'll tell you what, the cost of actually trying to figure out how to create a keto bread and using vital wheat gluten, I've seen all that. And that's why I suggest everyone to reach out to your MGP team for more information. Because if you're going to spend that amount of resource and time commercializing a product that won't commercialize, which probably won't commercialize if you don't use isolates, I've tried that. It's going to cost you so much more money. And sometimes you don't even factor that into your cost calculation, and if you create a benchtop commercialized recipe that is not hardy enough, that cannot handle fluctuations in your production talent and resources, people on your line can't understand the feel and the work of the dough, you're going to have a lot of product that fails the volume test and the specific gravity test. So you have to take all those into consideration when you do a complete product overhaul on your formulation. And keto is especially very difficult to overhaul currently with bread products. So I hope that kind of helps you understand what is needed to understand to calculate the cost and to have you really compare it, apples to apples. Okay, the next question. Other than wheat, Salvas, you would really need to restate that question because it's not, I don't really understand it. Other than wheat isolates fresh liquid away from cheese production any process needed before percentage. So if you could rework that question, Savas, I would come back to it. The next question is from Dimitri. Which rice would you recommend for pita bread?
And I guess so this is for, I guess if we're looking at a higher protein or highest amount of protein pita bread, then I would say that the combination of the two is great, especially if we're taking out all of the flour entirely, going off of the guide that we talked about today, trying to put in that composite flour. So where you have the starch component, and we're choosing to use our FiberSim or dietary fiber, so then we can have low net carbohydrates as well from that. And then the Arise 8000 to help out with the elasticity, 5000 to help with the extensibility. But if you're looking at just adding one ingredient to your formulation, then I do like adding Arise 5000 if I had to choose just one ingredient, because then it will help out with that extensibility that you do want in that type of product.
And to add to that, Sarah, that was one of my questions too, was when I was looking at your high protein tortilla formulation. My question was, over the shelf life, with that much protein, will it crack?
We have done some rollability scores, mostly with other product formulations. I do not recall what our shelf life data has shown on that, if Odie had an opinion on that.
Yeah, Lynn and Sarah, we do have information on that, but it's using a flour tortilla as the finished product. We can add a level from 1 to 3%, and we can actually increase the shelf life of flour tortilla from 10 days for a no additive to double that, 22 to 24 days. And that is a study done at Texas A&M. We can reference that article and provide a copy. I think I have a PDF copy. So it's a published information. There's really benefits to using, in particular, Arise 5000, because in flour tortilla, you need to stamp the dough to flatten it, and you need it to retain the diameter. You don't want it to retract back and shrink because the dough is just strong, and you need the Arise 5000 to help you manage that. So that information is available, and I think we can, of course, share that.
That's amazing. Okay, next question. Which proteins can the wheat protein isolates be best paired with to meet eligibility for front of pack protein claims, as in most comparable amino acid profiles?
Yeah, I think I can answer that. That question really is in our mind all the time, but there is a solution that, of course, I think the question came about because of the low nutritional value of wheat protein. It is low in lysine, but fortunately it's high in methionine. And guess what? The pulse proteins, and let's just say P in particular, it's high in lysine but low in methionine. So what happens when you mix the two together, there is that complementary effect. And this information is actually published. The professor at University of Manitoba came up with a plot or a bar graph showing that if you have a 70-30 blend of let's say a wheat source and a pea source, and it can be also from lentils, the ratio can vary from 70 to 30 or maybe 60 to 40. The higher number is the wheat flour or wheat source. There is actually an improvement in the PDCA score, which is the index for protein quality. And of course, that's needed to use that number to multiply for your daily value of, the amount of protein that is delivered per serving size. So in summary, the low nutritional quality of wheat protein can be improved or enhanced by blending with pulse proteins, in particular, let's say pea, and be able to deliver a higher nutritional value than wheat protein by itself.
Okay, great. Next question. Can we also ask about high protein based flour for baking? How does that affect baking without gluten? Yes, we have a lot of people on BAKERpedia ask about high protein pulse base. Unfortunately, there's only this much you can use, and you will know that very soon without affecting the gluten network structure. And that's why I'm a proponent of using isolates versus vital wheat gluten because of this. You can still use high protein pulse based flour. I mean, just to give your ingredient a really nice look, ingredient label, make it look nice. You can do front of label claims and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you would need to use some form of gluten to really hold that structure, because all these other pulse based flour do not provide functionality towards the dough. So that's my answer. Odie or Sarah, do you have anything to contribute to that?
Yeah, I'd like to add that when you really look at the protein components of wheat protein and pulse proteins, it's really the opposite. I think the gluten forming ability of wheat protein is due to gliadin and glutenin fractions. When you look at, let's say, pea protein isolate, and you look at the protein composition, it's high in albumins and globulins. They call it legumine and visilin, and very minor amount of, gliadin-like or glutenin-like product. So they are really opposite of each other. As I mentioned before or earlier, it's wheat protein is quite unique. It's the only plant-based protein that can give you that viscoelastic character. No other plant-based proteins can duplicate that.
Right. One more question, and this is really out of the box thinking. I have a cheese plant next door, and they throw away probably the whey. Can I use that liquid as a protein sauce? And so yes, you can. The problem with that is you add an allergen to your product, which if you're usually not, using milk or dairy, that is a milk or dairy allergen. And the liquid is very low in total proteins. Correct me if I'm wrong, Odie. But
You're correct. It's very
yeah.
dilute.
Yeah, it's pretty dilute. So you're not going to increase the protein content significantly in your formulation. It's just going to be one of those products that you can market differently, like, sustainability and, create a marketing story behind it, but really it's not a really good solid source of protein to increase your total protein quantity to be able to call it a keto bread. All right. Let's see. Are there any other questions that I missed? I think I'm pretty much done with this. If you have any more questions concerning this session, please contact Janelle. Her email is in our chat box, and it's going to be on the BAKERview when we release it. So, and if you have a burning question that needs to be asked immediately, please go to our forum and we will address it. Mark is going to help you get the community together to address your gluten-free, high protein questions. We can do it there. And yeah, so that's all I think we have time for today. We are exactly on the hour. And I would like to take a few minutes to just thank Odie and Sarah for coming on. It took quite a lot of preparation for us to pull this together, and the information is just tremendously impressive. So thank you, great job. And you all know where to reach me, and we will see you at the next BAKERview. Bye, bakers.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone. Bye-bye.